What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 94 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we are doing what I would have loved to do if it was still covered in Illinois, but of course we are covering the Arlington Million Stakes at Colonial Downs and their whole festival of racing, as we're going to cover every single stakes race here on this podcast. So thank you guys all so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciated. If you are here on YouTube, please go down below the video player. Please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton because not only is it 100% completely free to do, it helps us out tremendously because it shows us that you're enjoying the content, and it pushes this video and other podcasts on the channel out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. Also, scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now, you see our next show tomorrow, Picks and Ponies at Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, talking 4-Star Dave Day at Saratoga. Now added on with the 2 stakes that were pushed back from last weekend to this weekend. It's going to be another fantastic card up at the spot, Saratoga. Again, right back here on the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel, or on X at H Kravitz, or as you can see right here at AP Roscoe K. Every single podcast is streamed live on X as well. So be back here tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Also, guys, as you guys all know, every single episode of Bettin N Boozin and every episode of the HHH Racing Podcast is also available in audio form. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So where we post every single one. So if you're in the gym, on the way to work, something like that, and you want to listen to the podcast but don't want to use the video, feel free to go rate, review, and subscribe over there on our audio platforms. Saratoga and Del Mar Power Picks, as well as the original Power Picks, are still available. You can get these by weekend to weekend basis. You have until tomorrow at midnight to sign up for this weekend at Saratoga. Again, another fantastic edition of Saratoga this weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you'll get full write-ups, every single race, price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything to be successful at Saratoga or at Del Mar. Noah had 3 out of 4 winners in his spot plays on last Sunday, and the Saratoga Power Picks, I think it was last weekend, 2 weekends ago, Charlie had almost 4 out of 4 on his, as well as Howard, Pete, Paul, myself, Patrick. We all contribute to the Saratoga Power Picks. Noah is the one that does the Del Mar Power Picks, as he is our resident West Coast bias. So please go down HHHRacingPodcast.com. You'll see at the top of the screen, you'll see the Power Picks tip sheet banner, and you can click on that, and that'll bring you right to the Saratoga and Del Mar only Power Picks. As far as the normal Power Picks go, they still get sent out every single Saturday. You'll get 2 tracks, whatever those 2 tracks may be. You get, again, price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids. Everything need to be successful, as we are still well in the positive ROI on those spot plays since February of 2021. So please go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast if you want to subscribe for those. Only $4 a weekend, $15.99 a month is how Patreon bills it. For only $4 a weekend, they basically pay for themselves. So please go subscribe to those over there. And I already mentioned HHH Racing Podcast. You can see previous editions of the Power Picks before you buy them, or of course learn more about the podcast. But guys, let's move right into it here, as we have a great card to cover. We're covering every single stakes race. Like I said, there's a all stakes late pick 5 that starts on race number 7. We're going to talk about races number 5 and 6, 2 listed stakes on the dirt. Then we will get into the beautiful, what used to be and still is, the all turf late pick 5, as it always has been. So it's a fantastic sequence. I'm really excited to cover it for you guys. As you guys know, it is near and dear to my heart, as well as other people of the HHH Racing Podcast. But guys, I'm going to bring on my co-host right now. We'll go to the chat, say cheers, and we'll get right into the show. We'll go from the East Coast of New Jersey. We'll go the same ways we've always gone. Patrick Kunsel from The Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman, and from the University of Kentucky, Noah Maher. Boys, what's going on tonight?
What's up, Sir Charles?
No, with the backwards hat is crazy. I did not see it.
Ask him to take the hat off.
No,
I do not want it. By the way,
we'd like to attract viewers, not draw them away.
I do like the shirt, though. I like the merch. I do like the shirt.
Appreciate it.
Cop that merch. My merch was over there, but I didn't decide to wear the green on green action tonight as we had to support we had to support the Arlington shirt. Of course we did. Katie, of course, is here, guys. This card is now on Sunday. Katie, thanks so much for joining in early to say that. This was originally carded for Saturday, which, funny enough, was my birthday. Arlington Million Day on my birthday. Couldn't ask for anything better back when it was in Chicago. Had that in 2019, I believe. But yes, now the card got moved to Sunday as complications with the hurricane that's coming up from Florida. Hopefully the rain stays away and it will at least dry out by Sunday. Colonial has a fantastic turf course, so should be no issues. But of course, keep an eye on that. But all the fields basically stayed together. They're all 100% staying together. There are a few horses cross-entered, which we will talk about when we get there. But Paul Conlon, of course, is here. Paul, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate. Jim Pilars is here. Bill Kelly is here. For the boss is here. Mark Bogas is here. The Arlington Million sounds a lot.
No one needs a drink already.
I'm not even. I just saw it, Paul put in the chat. That's awesome. He said the Arlington Million sounds a little better than the Colonial Million of the Church Hounds Derby. Rest in peace. Arlington, Mark, I couldn't agree with you more, man. This is just the way it goes. White Sox win finally. Don't worry, Howard. They're already they're 28 and 88. I'll prepare the postseason banners as we continue to climb through the ranks. But it did finally win yesterday. Didn't beat the record, although at this point I kind of wanted them to beat the record. But either way, guys, everyone's here. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. If you guys are watching either on X or on YouTube, please go to the right side of the screen and comment in the live chat. We read every single one, especially if you have some opinions on these races. And all the people are laughing on the screen because Noah got absolutely brutalized. Had great clips this week. So he's wearing a hat and everyone's giving him
clips. They don't deserve
so much. They deserve it now because Noah didn't deserve what he got.
I blame that on Noah for going to great clips.
I wasn't even going to bring it up, and then Paul Conlon had said something, so I had to explain why everyone was laughing. And Barry Perry, I don't think I've seen your name. Barry, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate you joining in. But guys, cheers to everyone out there. I went and picked up a bunch of stuff. This is one of my favorite beers, the Kona Longboard. It's a fantastic beer. But cheers to everyone out there as we'll get this sequence started. The first two races, guys, race 5 and race 6. I'm just going to show the Equibase 4, and we can talk about our picks. So no PPs for the first two. And obviously Equibase has morning lines, but since this card's now on Sunday, we don't have morning lines on the DRF, and we do not have numbers to the sides of the horses. So I do apologize. I'll try my best to number them, and the rest of us will try our best to number them as we go through. But just a fair warning, we don't have morning lines or numbers on the DRF since this is now a Sunday card. It's basically quote unquote unfinished in terms of DRF. But guys, let's keep moving. The first race is race 5, and you'll see our picks scrolling on the bottom of the screen for race 5 and race 6. Again, very quick analysis for these first two. Then we will get into the late pick 5. Race 5 is the Petramalo Mile. It's, again, shocker, going a mile on 3-year-olds. For 3-year-olds on the dirt course, it's a one-turn mile at Colonial Downs, field of 7. The morning line favorite is a very familiar face for those that have followed the 3-year-old scene this year. The number 5, Hades, Paco Lopez, Joseph Orseno at 9-5. Second choice, number 2, Real Macho, Trevor McCarthy, Ron Crichton, 5-2. Rainy Skies, your third choice for Caramanos and McGee at 3-1. Pat, you're going first. You're the only one that doesn't have the second choice, number 2, Real Macho on top. Instead, you're going with Hades. What'd you like most about him in this spot as compared to others?
Yeah, I mean, Hades, kind of was the talk, when, winning the Holy Bull at Gulfstream a while back in the beginning of February, beating Domestic Product. And now, come to today and, Domestic Product's good going a mile and things like that, and was never beating Domestic Product in the Dwyer. And just, watching that race, I mean, like I said, the horse was just nowhere near the quality of what Domestic Product is, but steps into this class. And I know all you guys have the 2 Real Macho. I just think, Hades is just kind of faster than all these horses. Could find its own trip in here. It seems to be working, forwardly down at Monmouth.
Yeah, obviously he makes a whole ton of sense. We all have him second, so we all have him somewhere. Charlie, no, I'll let you guys talk on the 2, then we can move on to race 6. But Charlie, I'll let you go first. What'd you think most about Real Macho, who Trevor McCarthy's been riding out at Colonial this year? I can just show real quick, the number 2. Trevor McCarthy's win 16% out at Colonial, so he's been riding out there. He knows that he's getting to know the track now. And Real Macho, again, I have my reasons. What'd you like most about him in this race to beat others?
Yeah, I just think he's trending in the right direction. We're starting to see some progress. Obviously was in the Fountain of Youth, was in the Florida Derby. Obviously, not really a horse I would argue that was meant for those kinds of races, but it was kind of a weaker Florida circuit than we're used to. But then ran an okay race at Pimlico. I thought the trip was a bit unfortunate, didn't break well, was kind of wide throughout. Not Flavian's fault, just kind of the way the race developed. But then came back and ran a very game effort at Gulfstream against a solid horse in Catalytic and was a bit of a price there. And I just think the way this race will set up, I think the 1 is going to show some speed. Obviously, Hades is going to be going forward. There's some other horses. The 4 should show some speed. I just think Real Macho could end up sitting a really nice trip and sit right off of them and is working pretty forwardly. And I know obviously none of these buyer figures really jump out, but I feel like this field doesn't have any, real monsters in it. And I think Hades will end up taking a good amount of money. So I think Real Macho could get a good trip and be a decent price.
No, is that kind of what you saw? I mean, I completely agree with Charlie. And from the trip perspective, I just like this one because he's kind of trending, more up. He ran a really nice race at Gulfstream before. Now he's starting to trend back in the right direction, while some of these might be going a little bit backwards from their early form in the year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think his form's a little dirty up, kind of what Charlie was pointing towards. His 3 wins are at 1 turn. So he kind of got mixed up in those Florida prep races going 2 turns. They didn't work out too well. But yeah, like you said, I think he could sit a really good trip. The question for me he seems kind of like an all or nothing type. He's got those 3 wins at 8 starts, but if he doesn't win, it seems like he doesn't really show up. So it seems like that might be the case.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And everyone else, like I said, Hades makes a ton of sense. Just, of course, I think he's going to take a lot of money and willing to look elsewhere, guys. Race number 6, as you see also scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Patrick, man, you're again the odd man out. We're all going with the 2. Again, the Ontario-bred Dazzling Move for Trombetta and Jorge Ruiz. The morning line favorite in this race is number 8, Pure Lure for Trevor McCarthy and Michael Moore at 5-2. 3-1, your number 5, Cap Classique. The Russells team up 3-1 on the morning lines. Third choice is the number 2, Dazzling Move. Patrick, you're going with the number 4, the 4th choice, Carmelina, the Pennsylvania bred for Sanchez and Robert Reed. What'd you like most about this one?
Yeah, so I liked Carmelina back at Pimlico. I think it was the undercard of the Preakness, or maybe it was the Friday before. That was the You Almost Had Me race. Who was heavily favored. I was trying to get this horse in the exacta with You Almost Had Me. And yeah, it just did not run well that day, and honestly hasn't really run too well since then. But I'm getting a price here where the horse just is same level of class, if not kind of better. Is faced tougher. I don't know. I don't really know what type of trip she wants. She's won on the lead. Has closed into some paces, but I just think in this spot, I'm going to go with a horse that I'm more familiar with. Like the favorite, not many of us are on the favorite in here. So this seems to be a wide open race.
I don't disagree with you. Obviously, Charlie and I both have the favorite in second. The other 2 have her nowhere, excuse me. So I completely understand why, some people I think like the favorite's kind of an all or nothing type in this race. No, I'll let you go first. Talk about the number 2, Dazzling Move. Based on time forms perspective, which I'm sure you saw as well, there's one big discrepancy in this race, and it's the pace.
Yeah, I saw it the same way. It's one of those races where I think if somebody gets the lead and they get an easy lead like that, I think it's going to be tough to catch them. I think it'll be tough to catch her in the spot. If you look at her form, she ran in the Wilton and she, went balls to the walls early on in that race. So if you kind of toss that, makes her resume look a little bit better. Her last 2 races on dirt were wins with an 83 and an 86. So easy direction to go, and she's working really well into this race. And I do like your 4, Pat, Carmelina, who I think, even though she faced PA breds last time, she was, primarily speed, but I think she's kind of starting to show a different side of herself and the ability to stalk.
I don't disagree with you by any means. Charlie, anything you want to add real quick? Like I said, we all have the two there. Anything? And then Pure Lure is a horse who looks to have a little bit of speed, but might be a little bit better with a target. And this is most likely a pretty big step up for her.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the question is when you're having a horse from Parks and has been exclusively riding against those. I mean, we always talk about it. You just have to beat who's in front of you, and she's done a really good job of that in these last two efforts. And there's been some decent efforts. I think for me, this is one I just ended up putting in second because I think she has the ability and there's not a lot of speed. And she's, showed last time going a mile for the first time that she can handle the distance. I think the question is again the big step, like not big, but reasonable step up in class is going to be the concern. I think that's what I would want to monitor. I don't like the odds at 5-2, but I think you'll get more than that. I'd say, looking around at other horses in here, I don't really get the 5 at 3-1. I think with the Russells, this horse will take money, and it's a deep closer who's already had enough trouble trying to close into paces, and I think this should be a pretty cold pace. So for someone who likes a closer normally, I think the 5 is a complete toss. I almost put the 4 in third, so I like to see that others also think that horse is interesting. I'll briefly touch on the 6 because I know Noah already touched on the 2, who has run against a lot of solid Gulfstream horses, so I think the 2 is the horse to beat personally. But I thought Gervin's Princess was a little interesting because this is a horse that tends to sit, just off the lead, but has also been running, against, in theory, faster horses because it's been mainly in sprints and shorter distances. So I just think this is one now with the stretch out that, could show a little bit more speed in a race that doesn't have a lot of it. So I think the 6 is one at a price who could finish in the exactas.
I feel like you're completely correct on that. There's a lot of ways you can go, but I feel like for me it's the 2, or it could be a lot of other horses in this race. So I think the 2 is going to be one of my strongest plays of the day, as you'll see as we come up to best bets later in the show. But guys, we'll move into late pick 5 here, and this is where it really starts getting good. Race number 7 is the Andy Guest Stakes, and I'll show you guys the morning lines right now. Pretty heavy morning line favorite in this one, going 5.5 on the inner turf. Fillies and Mares, 3 years old and up, off a very impressive last race. Beauty of the Sea, Paco Lopez for Joe Orseno at 8-5. Number 1, Love Appeals. Cheminade takes them out for Clement at 3-1. Third choice is the number 5, Medalla Match at 9-2 for BJ Hernandez and Cherie DeVoe. As I'll bring up the picks right now. Patrick, brother, you're still up, my friend. But look, she makes a whole ton of sense in this race, and you're picking her to beat the pretty heavy morning line favorite in this race. The number 1, Love Appeals. What'd you like most about her?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this race at the beginning, and I see Love Appeals in here, and you think Clement, likes to stick to Saratoga when he kind of ships out during the summer meet. You question it and stuff like that, but I look at this race, and I think they're coming off a win. And I know the field wasn't great, but I like the way she won. In a turf sprint, you're not going to win by the biggest of margins in there, but she won impressively, I thought. So I think they're trying to, put her in another spot where she can move forward again, and eye her bigger things. Honestly, I mean, she was facing much better early on. Try to get her form back into play here. Clement has great stats off, winning last out. Should sit a stalking trip from the rail, so Chaminade can kind of pick and choose what he wants to do here. I'm just hoping, and we're going to talk about this. If the horse prefers, what type of give in the ground and things like that. I don't know what your guys' opinions are with the horses that you guys are going to pick on the turf, and if you thought of that. But that's kind of what's going into play here. I mean, I do see this horse is raced, on good turf a couple times, so it's going to be tough. But I think getting the rail she should sit a nice stalking trip.
Yeah, I agree with you, Charlie. Noah, obviously we all have her somewhere in the mix. I have her third. Noah has her third. Charlie has her second. Charlie, I'll go to you next. Then we can go into our top pick. Who I'll show the replay on the last race at Monmouth. But anything you want to touch on about Love Appeals, then we'll move into our top pick, number 7.
Yeah, I just thought the effort last time out was really solid. It's not always easy to come off the pace in general, but especially in these kind of sprint-like races. And I also just like the body of work. I know some of the efforts haven't, been amazing, but when you're running against, a lot of horses in Gulfstream and Churchill and Saratoga and Belmont, like this horse is, I feel like really, even though, they aren't stakes races, has still been running against tougher competition than some of these others who, yes, have been in more stakes races, but are more exclusively running more in, like Laurel or Monmouth or Pimlico. And I just think, or even Colonial, and I think getting exposure to that kind of competition is good. And I just think if she can build off that effort last time, I think she is the most likely one to potentially upset the favorite.
And obviously continue to go on. Beauty of the Sea. I'll show the time form, Charlie, and this is what you can also build off of. They have the 2 Bosserati going out to the front, but the 6 and 8 not far behind, with the 7 sitting a nice and behind trip. I think this only helps this one, but Beauty of the Sea was, very impressive last time, and the number shows it as well.
Yeah, I just think, honestly, the time form kind of puts what I at least had in mind when I was looking at this race, realistically, exactly how I anticipate this race going. I just think the 7 is going to sit, length or 2 off the lead. It's just going to be right in that perfect spot as long as, the horse doesn't get pacoed, and then can just angle out, go a little bit wide, and then, go right on by. And again, the horse kind of did get pacoed and still found a way, which I think is even more impressive. But I think Beauty of the Sea, you can't really fault the form. Obviously, kind of showed some regression in 2023, went on that massive layoff, and then credit to Joseph. I don't remember his last name off the top of my head. I'm not looking at it right now. Yeah, Joseph Arseno. Because these last 3 races off that layoff, this horse has been she's been brand new and she's been fantastic. Losing to Tony Ann is nothing to be embarrassed of, and it was by a neck, and the other 2 efforts were wins. So I think she built it off that form.
No, and then anything more you want to touch on? Beauty of the Sea, like she got a perfect trip last time, but showed some real resilience coming up on the rail. And obviously the rail opens up at Monmouth at 5.5, but this is being the same type of configuration. I actually don't mind that she's drawn outside. She shouldn't get herself into trouble. And if she just builds off that last race again, I mean, she looks very tough.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty gritty effort. To Patrick's point, if you want to be a little concerned, about the condition of the track, her 2 races over a wet turf are not very good. But then again, she could just be a different horse at this point. Like Charlie was saying, Orseno had her off for a while and she's come back really nicely. So she could just be a different horse. And I think she is going to sit a pretty good trip. I guess I'll talk about Medalla Match, who I've gotten second and you've gotten second. Charlie's gotten third. So a lot of us thinking similarly. This is just kind of the classiest of the bunch. She's been facing some really tough horses. 2 back, she ran in the race with Overcharge and was only a length behind her. And then last time she was facing some really good sprinters as well. So, gets the drop in class. She is 6, but Cherie DeVaux's horses are really firing right now. And I think it would be kind of stupid to leave one of those off of a vertical or horizontal ticket at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, it for me, especially top part of the Cherie DeVaux fan club, it would be suicide leaving this horse off the picks, especially if she just needs a little bit of class relief. She ran really well. She won the illicit stake at Remington Park last year, of course, under Michael Beeler. Now for Cherie DeVaux, who, like Noah said, the horse has been firing on all cylinders, especially at Saratoga recently. I mean, even in the race at Churchill and against Overcharge, like you said, only a length behind her. Then going to the Intercontinental, facing horses like Roses for Deborah. I mean, you want to talk about giving the ground. That race was on yielding turf after it absolutely poured on us at Churchill on Oaks Day. So this is another one that might take a little bit of a step up with a little bit of giving the ground, but I completely agree with you. I think Medalla Match is, for me, as long as the pace shapes up like it shows, or if the pace can semi set up like it shows, Medalla Match is definitely one of the likely winners for sure. But we'll continue to move on. Chambeau, Pat, last horse we'll talk about real quick, then we'll move on. This is a horse you have in second, I believe, or no, third. You have her in third. Is this kind of just a pace angle for you, or what are you thinking on this horse before we move on?
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. And, I don't want to bring up the turf course again, but I look at this, if this horse can get to the lead pretty easily from the outside, who knows with how much giving the ground, if horses can come on late. I don't know. It has run some decent races too, and you look a couple back, on the lead. Those are pretty fast fakes, kind of running horses off their feet a little bit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And like I said, if there's no one that wants to go off the lead, obviously Bossarati is going to have a say about that. That horse is basically an all-go situation from the 2 hole. But if she can just sit off, makes a ton of sense and going to get a jump on a lot of others. I'm going 7-5-1. Pat's going 1-7-8. Charlie's going 7-1-5. Noah's based going 7-5-1 with me. Guys, let's move on to race number 8, and that is the second leg of the late pick 5. And get ready for it, guys, because it's the same exact race, but for the males, as it draws 5.5 furlongs, this time on the outer turf. However, 3 years old and up in the male division, 150,000, and this one draws a full field of 12. And this is not an easy race by any means. The morning line favorite and going to be the very late closing Mischief Magic Buick Appleby 5-2. I don't even know if you'll get that, but this is a very large field and a lot of ways you can go. But we all know how bet Appleby can be. Second choice, the number 7 Witty just to the inside, heavy on Toledo and Elizabeth Merriman at 4-1. The number 1 Dream Shake on the inside, Ben Curtis, Mike Stidham at 5-1. Your third choice. And I'll bring up, and I completely get it why Noah's not going with this horse on top. This horse is very Mischief Magic, the 8, who we Pat, Charlie, and I have on top, is hard to trust, especially in these short turf races. I have my reasons why I like him in this specific spot, but Noah, completely understand why. I messed up my own picks in this race because I had Witty in, I believe, at least third, if not second, because I actually really like this horse in this spot for Elizabeth Merriman. I'll bring up the DRF right now. But what'd you like most about Witty in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, Witty's kind of a hard knocking horse that really hasn't done much wrong. He's finished in the exacta 17 and a 23 times lifetime. So, he always kind of runs his race. And ever since he switched to the Merriman barn, he's just been super consistent. It looks like he's kind of just gotten better and better. His last 2 races, or actually his last 3, you go back, he hit a nice win at Laurel. He beat a horse by the name of Outlaw Kid, who's a pretty decent sprinter that I know that we've covered before. And then over at Pimlico, lost to a horse named Grooms All Business, who I believe is the second choice to Cogburn in the Troy whenever Saratoga decides to run that race. And then last time in the Highlander,
Mother Nature.
But yeah, seriously. Last time in the Highlander, I mean, they completely walked the dog in the race. They almost went 24 for 6 furlongs. So I think you can give her a little bit of excuse there. I just think for some lower profile connections, this is just a really hard knocking horse, and I like his chances.
Like I said, I have him third. Originally, this is the newly turned 5-year-old Elizabeth Merriman can train. She got a small barn, but wins 20% of the time. I completely agree with you on that last race. Noah completely walked the dog, was able to pass a couple. Fila Ariano did not get the trip. I thought she would in that race. Absolutely ran them off their feet in a race that we covered here on Bettin N Boozin. But Witty makes a whole ton of sense. Patrick agrees, has her in third. Charlie's going against, but Pat, I'll go to you first, and then Charlie, feel free to touch on anything. Mischief Magic in this race, like I said, very deep closer, hard to trust, but I'll tell you what, Pat, there's not exactly a Cogburn in this race.
No, there's not. And you look at the class that this horse has faced, and you can kind of understand, where this horse is. Might not be one of the top Appleby horses. Definitely is not. But I look at this horse has been training tremendously of late. Has a wicked turn of foot coming in late. My thing was this is a great placing for this horse. You look at the competition here, and Noah makes valid points about the 7. I'm not going to tell him no off that horse, but I look at the other horse in this field, and I just wonder. The only thing that I think that comes up that could be a problem is the turf sprint. The length of the race and what kind of ground we get. Other than that, I think Mission Magic. I know our friends at Equine Edge have this horse projected to be 6-5 morning line, so. I see 5-2, and I'm kind of licking my chops.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I don't know if this horse will be, but Charlie, I'll let you add on here with Mischief Magic, then I'll talk about why I like him so much. Like I said, maybe not a vertical play, but if there's any race where he should be able to win, it should be this one.
Yeah, this is the race
I'm
I'm.
Sugar.
The dog thinks it's
No,
going to win too. I like it.
Sugar agrees.
No,
Sugar agrees.
Sugar's good. This is the puppet. This is Chelsea.
Oh, yeah.
Sugar knows better than Barker in the podcast. But no, this is definitely, I would argue, the hardest race in the sequence. I'm not a fan of turf sprints personally, so getting 2 in a row was not what I was hoping for. Mischief Magic is the perfect horse for me. I just know what's coming. This horse is going to go off at 6 or 7 to 5 and is going to end up breaking my heart by flying late and just not getting there right in time. But the reality is this is, in my eyes at least, a pretty big class drop compared to what Mischief Magic has been, facing against. There's no Cogburn or Arzak in this race, as you were kind of touching on. So I'm going to trust that Buick at least keeps the horse close enough. I know the natural thing is for this horse to be farther back, but I think the horse will be close enough to be able to go by. In terms of other horses, again, because these races are wide open, I just figured if I'm going to go with the heavy favorite, and I don't really trust anyone in this spot, I might as well throw a couple Gulfstream horses that are prices in there. So why not? The 5 horse is one that is another one that I'm victim to multiple times. This is another one of those closers that likely needs a little more distance, but they keep trying to go at this distance. But, it's ran against some very solid sprinters at Gulfstream. When the horse went to Churchill against Cogburn, didn't run bad. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible. I think this is one that could close and finish somewhere in the money. And this is another one that just loves to not quite get it done, but can run in the money. You can see, obviously, with 17 out of 34 efforts in the money, always runs race. And then with the 6, I was looking for at least to have one horse that is going to be more on the front end. This is one that I will say, obviously, being 8 years old, has started to show some regression, but is also one that, again, is run against some really, really fast horses. And I just think, Brian Lynch isn't really one to kind of sacrifice his horses. So I feel like if, Caratori's in this spot, I feel like he thinks that, he at least has a chance to run decent and is one that, could maybe stay up long enough to at least finish in the money. And again, if you like the heavy favorite, picking a double-digit horse underneath in the exacta could pay off.
I mean, no, absolutely. This horse ran in the Van Cleef last year, got 3rd to front run the Fed. Not smoking Jay's day that day, that's for sure. But Caratari was one of Smoking Jay's old rivals. Got beat in the what was that? The Jim McKay at on Preakness Day at Pimlico a couple years back, and just it seems to every single time that he comes up, Jay's in with him. So Caratari again has made a ton of sense before, like Charlie kind of noted. He's turning 8. He's turned 8. I don't know if he's nearly the horse that he used to be. So I think 12 to 1, you might get more than 12 to 1, but for one on the front end, if the pace doesn't develop, which I have a very hard time at thinking it doesn't, Caratari can maybe hold on for a piece. But I'll show time for him real quick, as they have. I mean, there's 6 horses realistically they can get the rate speed, can get the front end in this race. I mean, Dream Shake has a 102 early time for him, and I mean he's basically in the back. He's 4th from last with a 102 early time for him. With Buick coming over, this is a huge drop in class for Mischief Magic compared to what he's faced before. Only lost to a length by Arzak, who's probably still one of the top turf sprint competitors in the U.S. right now. And granted, his last 2 races haven't been the best. He hasn't really, even last time with Buick, but Cogburn absolutely freaked that day, just like he freaked at Churchill Downs on Derby weekend. This is just this. You want to talk about company lines? This is such a drop off. If there's any race that Mischief Magic wins, it's going to be this one with the pace scenario, with Buick coming over, with the drop in class. All signs point to go for Mischief Magic to come into this race, most likely as a catapult for something later in the year. And then what I assume Appleby hopes is onto the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. But it's obviously a long way to get there. And Mischief Magic is going to run from the absolute clouds, but it completely makes a ton of sense to me. He has run on good before. Obviously, he does like it more firm, I think, which is why Appleby has him over here. But he has run on the good turf and has run well on it before, so doesn't necessarily hamper my opinion too much. But of course, always something to keep in mind with the weather, but we'll keep moving on. I'm going 8-1-7. Pat's going 8-4-7. Charlie's going 8-5-6. Noah's going 7-5-1. Guys, switching over to race number 9, and this is the start of the graded stakes. It's the Grade 2 Secretariat Stakes, formerly run at the beautiful Arlington Park. Grade 2, going a mile on the inner turf for 3-year-olds, headed by actually not what I had thought, but the number 1, Brilliant Birdie for Brian Hernandez and Cherie DeVoe at 5-2. Second choice, the number 9, the Belmont. What was the Belmont Derby winner? The Grade 1 winner, Chikari, Johnny V, Graham Motion at 3-1, and top of the Charlie Freeman fan club, the number 7, First World War at 7-2. And I think this is where I want to note real quick, guys, that we're going to have not only cross-entered horses, there's going to be jockeys that are cross-entered in different places. So these assignments can change. Speaking of, Jose Ortiz and Frankie Dettori are cross-entered to run at Woodbine on some horses. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. Also, not so much in this race, but there is a couple. There is, I believe Chikari is also cross-entered, but I believe he's cross-entered at Saratoga, if I'm not mistaken. So a couple cross-entered, but also it'll be interesting to see where the jockeys end up going. We are all going with Cherie DeVoe in the top of the Cherie DeVoe fan club. Brilliant Birdie, except Charlie, which I'm sure everyone could have guessed in their right mind. Charlie's going with First World War. Apart from being obviously hitting on him before, Charlie, what'd you like most about First World War?
Yeah, I just think he's a very talented horse where it doesn't matter what surface and he consistently runs solid races. I just think there's certain people on here, mainly those who have to hide bad haircuts, who don't want to acknowledge and respect that. Now, look, I will admit, certainly, yes, a big reason for his success is that he gets great trips, but part of getting great trips is the horse themselves being in that spot. I like that the blinkers are on again because I think the blinkers are on because I think First World War needs to be forward. And the reality is he just loves to run the strip of just being, within a length or two right behind and then just letting a different horse do the dirty work and going on by. And, Brendan Walsh consistently has him running well. Dettori was able to execute 2 back. I understand last time he wasn't quite able to get the job done, but I don't really see any reason to believe he can't bounce back and get this one over. And, I do think the 1's a solid horse. I was going to stick the horse in 3rd, but then I thought putting the favorite in 3rd doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I knew when I saw the trainer, you all would be all over this horse. So like where that 3 didn't do running, granted, I know the 3 had an issue in that race where I had Liganos. I had to once again just stand against the colt and, defy you guys. I'll move into the 9 briefly. Chikari, I do have to give a lot of respect to. This was a horse that I thought was extremely fraudulent in the American turf. And obviously only lost by a neck, but it felt good to watch. Yeah, but it felt good to watch First World War beat that horse and have First World War that day. But the reality is, it was only by a neck. And then after that, came back and beat Legend of Time in the Belmont Derby last time out, which to me kind of shows that this horse, it wasn't a fluke. Obviously, that effort did kind of come out of nowhere, but he has been able to hold form. And he's another one kind of similar to First World War lately in these last 3 races, who's just done a really good job of always seemingly being in a perfect spot for a trip where he always is just right in the thick of it the entire time. So had to make sure to at least put him somewhere. Obviously, if 6 of your 7 races, you're in the money, you're doing something right. And then lastly, I just wanted to put a price in somewhere and not go with the 3 chalks. So I think Fulminero is a bit of an interesting horse where he is more of a closer and definitely needs a bit of a pace setup. And I don't know if he'll get it, but he's been in very decent form recently. And I know, actually, I think all of my horses are cross-centered, except for maybe the 9 is. No, all 3 of them are cross-centered to Saratoga, funny enough. So who knows? Maybe none of mine will even run. But I just think the 5 at 10-1 is a nice price for a horse that could finish underneath somewhere.
No, Delacour's brought some good ones over. He's 7 for 9 in the money, winning 22%, 2 for 9. So Fulmineo, as long as he gets that pace set up for him, even though he did win the last 2 times closing into cold paces, I think this one's a little bit more of a tougher challenge than those last 2.
Agreed.
But he's earned the step up, although a little slow on figs. We'll see what he can do in here as long as he gets that pace set up, which it looks like he should. No, I'll go to you next, and we'll talk about Brilliant Birdie. Timeform has this listed as a fast pace between the 3 and the 8. First World War sitting right behind. Chikari right next to him. Brilliant Birdie in the really nice on-the-rail closing type of pace scenario. And I think after that last race in the American Derby, sadly, we can't show the replay. I thought that was very, very visually impressive and a really nice step up for a horse that's kind of progressed every single time out.
Yeah, that race was definitely an eye-opener for sure. And, he beat First World War on the square. And as much as I hate to admit it, First World War is a very talented 3-year-old. So just the fact that he ran the way that he did, he's improved with every start. Last time he answered the Lasix question, if that's a concern for you. I guess the concern now would be maybe First World War and a couple others might get the jump this time. But I think the pace is probably hot enough that as long as BJ doesn't have him too far back, he should be fine. And I think this is probably the main ride that BJ is at Colonial for. I think I don't see why this course can't improve once again. And if he gets the trip that I envision, I think he's going to be really tough. And so do we, Patrick and you. So I'm seeing the same thing as you guys.
Patrick, I'll let you add on anything you want to add on. I just like as I kind of touched on before, I know Pete's a big fan of this, but the ever progressing hasn't really shown that regression yet. And with a race that looks to set up for him again, it can, I'm especially with Cherie DeVoe, I'm very likely to take a chance here with this one. Oh,
for sure. I mean, the progression's been, just what you want to see when you're backing a horse like this, in a big spot, just even from, the debut of, just showing that progression in the race alone, just watching that. Noah hit on everything with Brilliant Birdie. So I'll talk about the 9 Tricari, who, I mean, this horse, good for Graham Motion. I mean, this horse kind of came out of nowhere a little bit in the American turf at 47-1 that day, and ran huge. And then, the Penn Mile even, I'm going to knock on First World War a little bit, and Charlie hit on it. I mean, that horse got a perfect trip. Tricari did all the dirty work in that race, being on the pace, quick pace. I know that was only going a mile. And then the Belmont Derby, horse beat some, a decent field that day. And now, we're going to get 3-1 morning line for, somebody that's a Grade 1 winner. I think this horse is going to sit right there and should be forwardly placed too. I think this is kind of the 1 or the 9 in this spot. And if not, First World War will stuff me in a locker again.
I was going to say again, because it's happened before. Yeah. I was on him last time. I was on him the time before. This is just the time that it looks to be not for me, as there's a Cherie DeVoe topples First World War for me. I know a shocker for a lot of people in this race, but there are some other horses in here that make some sense. I know Matt Miller said, obviously, Matt Miller's in the chat. He said, rooting for James Graham, obviously former Arlington runner, Arlington prodigy, but Bear River makes a ton of sense. He's just going to be part of that early pace scenario. Can certainly hang on for a piece. That 89 at Churchill was a very nice race and a very nice run. It's just a matter of, can he hold up with a pace scenario that he's really never seen on the turf before? And as long as that develops, that's where I had a little bit of a problem trusting Bear River. But underneath, I mean, there's a ton of sense. But yeah, I think Brilliant Birdie makes a whole lot of sense in this race. And we can, especially if he continues to improve, this could be a very, very nice horse going forward. I'm going 179 in the Secretariat. Pat's going 193. Charlie's going 795. Noah's going 179. Guys, before we get to the Beverly D and of course the Arlington Million, please go down below the video player if you're enjoying the show. Press the like button and please hit the subscribe button. One, it really shows us that you're helping out. Really shows us that you guys are enjoying the content. It helps out the channel a ton and is completely free to do. And it'll push these videos out into YouTube's algorithm for people that haven't seen the HHH Racing Podcast before, and we'll bring them on hopefully to enjoy the podcast just like you guys are doing now. So thank you if you do that for us, guys. Let's move on to the Beverly D Stakes, of course, aptly named for the brilliant Beverly Duchessois, Richard Duchessois' late wife. Field of 6 draws into this field with some cross entries. So a little bit, honestly, guys, the Beverly D was a very, very nice race. Always was at Arlington. Sometimes got some short fields in the later years. I still saw the most impressive horse I've ever seen in person run in the Beverly D in the 2021. That being, of course, the late Santa Barbara. I know I should have called on.
I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess wrong, so it's a good thing you didn't call on me.
It's a good thing I didn't call on you. Yeah, the late Santa Barbara, fantastic horse. ran at Belmont with an absolutely explosive kick, and then beat a field of 5 at Arlington, but looked fantastic doing so. Again, just always a fantastic race. I'm a little bit disappointed that this draws a field of 6. Granted, some very nice horses in this race with Fev Rover, Moira, and others, but especially if they end up going somewhere else because of the weather situation, it's going to be a really sad race for what used to be the pinnacle of Illinois racing. And I'll show the field right now. Field of 6, like I said, Moira, the very talented Mayor now at 9-5. Jose Ortiz is carded to ride for Kevin Attard at 9-5. Fev Rover, the very talented Ireland bred as well. Castellano for Mark Cassie. Third choice is a horse who absolutely freaked last time. Liban for Edgard Zayas and Safi Joseph Jr. at 7-2. And I'll bring up the picks right now. Patrick is the only horse not going with Mara. He's going with Mission of Joy, which is actually a horse who's run against really tough competition, should fare better in a smaller field. Patrick, you can also talk about why you don't have her on top completely, because you have, obviously some talks about the cross entries and what Attard talked about with Moira. But what'd you like most about in this race with Mission of Joy?
Yeah, I mean, with Mission of Joy, I kind of look at the Diana, and I'm sure, I don't know what your guys' opinion is on the Diana. I guess we'll hear from you on that, what you guys think of that, because a couple horses are coming out of that race. Besides, maybe one or two, it's just really a toss for me. So, I look at the Just a Game, and I thought Mission of Joy ran pretty well going a mile. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the distance today. She's going to have to go a little bit longer, but she's proven that she can go longer. She hasn't won in a decent amount of time, but I just look at this field and, it's kind of hard to pick. Like, you're banking on Moira taking another step forward after, that first time out where she ran huge. Grand Motion's known to do well at Colonial. I'm going to try and find a price in here with Mission of Joy, and hopefully, this 4-year-old can take another step forward and is going to have to improve on the buyer speed figure. I mean, has been sitting consistently in the mid 90s, but has been working very well of late. And, like I said, price in here. I don't know what you guys think of Mission of Joy. I see a couple you have the horse in your top 3, but going to try and get a little cute.
No, and look, I mean, she makes a ton of sense just based on class rating and all that type of stuff. It's just a matter of she's just been a little hard to trust recently. Yeah. I mean, that last time out, Mara did the same exact thing that she did in that race, was just basically right next to her, just a half length in front of her. Moira after a long layoff since the Breeders' Cup, absolutely almost blew by that entire field, and they walked the dog in that race. It's just, that's for me. I mean, Mission of Joy, I'm sure, is going to run well in here. Just a matter of, is she going to beat someone like Moira when she kind of had everything she could have had last time? That's my only thing with her. But again, makes a ton of sense. She's a very nice horse and a nice to see improving filly. Obviously, it's going to be her 5th time out this year, but she's had 3 of 4 starts in that mid 90s to getting to the high 90s by her in the Just a Game, just losing half a length to the other top step of the Charlie Freeman fan club in Chili Flag. But again, just makes a ton of sense, but it's going to have to show me that she can that she can beat these other horses. As for the rest of us, we're all going with Moira, who I was against in the Diana completely, to be honest with you. I think I had her 3rd, but just because I knew what she was. But first time out, I thought that was an extremely tough spot to be in first time out in the Grade 1 Diana at Saratoga with all these different horses. Gina Romantica, White Beam, Didia, Coppice, Mission of Joy, as we talked about. Like, every single horse in this race, it was a very tough spot, and man, did she do it well. I mean, Charlie, I'll go to you first. Moira, that last race, like I said, was fantastic. I'll go ahead and show the replay, and I'll let you talk over it. And what you like most about Moira in this spot. Obviously, the one thing I want to mention, though, is due to the weather, she is cross-entered at Woodbine I believe this weekend. So just pay attention to that. She might end up going somewhere else. And like I said, that would be a really big tampering on what already is a short field. But Charlie, she's great, and she showed it last time out off a pretty long layoff, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, look, she has an incredible resume. You can see it with her earnings. She's ran in so many tough races. And for me, running that well against Inspiral and Warmheart, who are, two of the most talented horses I've personally ever seen, uh, to run that well obviously meant that Mora is clearly the most talented horse, was clearly the most talented horse going into this race, and you could argue last time out was one of the most talented horses in the field. The big concern obviously was the massive layoff, and we talk about this all the time, especially when a horse is coming from that Breeders' Cup weekend if they need one, but especially in this case because we normally say that if they run in March, April, May, but not let alone July. And, to go into that aggressive of a spot, I think we all kind of hinted at that, she could be ready and be talented in that race because, why would you stick her in the Diana in that aggressive of a spot and not go for more of a tune-up? For me, I would honestly more so be, if you're trying to look elsewhere, just be terrified of this horse because if she was that good off the layoff, I just can't even imagine, again, assuming the weather can hold up and she can run here, how good she'll be second time out. I just don't really see anyone who has the resume, or again, more importantly, I just don't really see anyone knowing that she, in theory, should be improving second time out that can really put up a fight with her. I'll move into the other ones and then let you guys go back to elaborate more on the 6. I was just looking for a fresh face because I know some of these have run against each other. So with the Tune to Death, this is one who, is more of a deep closer, but is now going to be stretching out to the first time of this distance. Obviously, with this being a Cali horse and seeing that Noah has her nowhere, I guess you could argue is a little concerning, but I think this is one who, has ran against some decent horses like Ruby Nell, always runs her race, doesn't really have any recent efforts that are that bad. I think the question is going to be the distance. I think she is more of a wild card, and I feel like we'll either be one that actually really relishes the extra distance or, is terrible at it. And I'm banking on this one being, one at a price who could relish it. And, I think with the 6 being likely a very heavy favorite, I want to look for a price underneath. And then lastly, I'll let you guys go more into the 4. This was more of just that I don't buy it with the 1, and I hear what Pat was saying with Mission of Joy. This is a horse that I actually have used in the past underneath, but ultimately I just think Fav Rover, I had to show enough respect to be in 3rd, but as this is a race that relates to Arlington and means a lot to me too. I'll be damned if this horse wins. I don't have any bad interaction with Fav Rover, but this is just a horse that constantly I feel like has had some races where she's been bet down, and last time out, especially in a race we covered, got bet down. And I was wrong about who won, but I was very clear that Fav Rover would not be the winner. And I'm refusing. I think 2-1 is a crazy morning line on this horse. I personally don't see it, and I hope I'm right. And once again, she makes people regret betting on her. But
well, I'll tell you what. I mean, no, we'll go into Fav Rover. I mean, she makes it. I mean. But just on paper, she makes a ton of sense. But that last race was a pretty big regression. I expect her to be a little better second off the layoff in that regard. She's 6 now. She might just be getting worse. I mean, she might just not be what she used to be. I mean, I think in this race, besides Mora, Mission of Joy obviously holds that regard as well. She's just slower at this point now, unless she turns the form around of these last 2 starts to put something together to run back to those high 90s. She just seems slow now.
I think if you're betting the race vertically and you do like Moira, I think you have to try to beat Fav Rover in a spot like this. And I think Mission of Joy is one of the ones that I would definitely be using. To your point, Kyle, she was really good last year. She just hasn't quite shown that this year. And even though she did have a little trouble at the start last race or last time in the Nassau, I just think the old Fav Rover gets the job done.
Yeah.
I know Implicated was actually a horse I liked that day. But, if Fav Rover is really as good as she is, regardless of the doubts, maybe that was too short for her. I just, I don't know. I think this is one that you probably have to try to beat if you're playing like a straight exacta. And if I were playing 6-5 would definitely be one that I would try and play.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you by any means, especially from a value standpoint. I completely agree with you. The 6 for me is just, I mean, she's as stone cold as it gets for me on the win end. I wouldn't be trying to beat her with anyone else on the win end, but underneath, there's a lot of different ways that you can go. And I agree with you in trying to beat Fav Rover for second. The last horse we'll talk about is Liban. None of us have anywhere. The last time out in the Wasted Tears at Lone Star, she ran absolutely away from that field. Granted, with a pretty easy trip, but still, she showed a side that she never really showed before, and it's that she was able to put horses away in the distaff at Lone Star, the 2-back. Dana's Beauty is a horse for none other than the man on the bottom, Resolute Racing, who ran very well. And Liban probably should have gotten the job done that day and ended up not. Second time out, though, ran off the screen, but it's going to have to improve to be horses like Moira and probably even Favre at this point, even in her career. But Moira, for me, is as dead stone as it gets, as long as she ends up going to the Beverly D. And Mike Ponfig. Mike, I don't think I've seen your name before in the chat. Thanks so much, Mike. Thanks so much for joining the show. Mike agrees with me that 6 is a stone cold single. But yeah, guys, just there's no sugarcoating it for me. It's just, and a lot of people have been saying it, Matt, Chris Couples, Howard in the chat. It's just a shell of what it used to be. And it's really sad to see a race like this that was so good before. Because as pointed out in the chat, Arlington used to hold, an international festival, used to have horses coming over from everywhere. Granted, even though it still ended up being Chad Brown Day a lot of the time, which is what we called it at Arlington. Sister Charlie won this race twice. Just fantastic horses. And now this is just what's left. And it's really just kind of sad. Obviously, not only for it being away from Arlington, but just what's on the day. I'm going, sorry, I took that off before I went. I'm going 6-4-5. Patrick's going 5-6-4. Charlie's going 6-2-4. Noah's going 6-4-5. Guys, last race is the our non-Arlington, but Arlington Million, the classic distance, 1.25 miles on the turf, used to start on the first turn, or the final turn, excuse me, of Arlington. And again, guys, just another, granted, you actually have the internationals coming in. You have a very nice horse, of course, Nation's Pride, Ancient Rome also coming over for Charlie Hills. But feel the 6 for this race, guys, was just unheard of back in the day. And now you're getting only 6. It's just, it's crazy is what it is. It's for $1 million, you're only getting 6 horses. It's a little ridiculous. Morning line favorite, of course, will be the number 4, Nation's Pride Buick for Appleby at 8-5. Very, very strong runner. Second choice is a horse that I really wish would have got home on Derby Day. That was my other. I got 1 out of 2 9-to-1s home that day. Integration was one of them. Dynamic Pricing, of course, being the other. Number 1, Integration, Kendrick Carmouche, Shug McGahee at 5-2. Third choice is the Invader, even though he is Kentucky bred. The Invader coming over from Ascot. Jamie Spencer comes over as well for Charlie Hills at 3-1. And this is a horse I actually kind of wanted to put it on top after more looking just pace scenario wise, but that we're actually split 2-2 here. Nation's Pride and Integration. I think Integration also has a huge chance. I have him in second. Charlie, I believe, also has him in second as well. So off that last race, granted, again, in a small field, I'll let the boys talk up first, and then we'll go into our picks, Charlie, but with Nation's Pride. But Integration, guys, last time out, again, ran huge. Again, only in a 3-horse field that day because it was a soft turf. Not many people wanted to run. But visually, it was very impressive. And coming into this race, he's probably in the best form of his entire career. Noah, I'll let you go first. Throw it to Patrick. Let Patrick talk about it, add on as well. What'd you like most about Integration in this spot?
Yeah, I'm getting sucked into the Integration fan club in this race.
Yeah.
I just based off of who he had been facing and what he had shown early in his career, I still think there's something there with him. I think you have to look at the fact that he's never lost at Colonial. He's 3 for 3, and he's never lost with Kendrick aboard. And
Yep,
hopefully that I don't intend that to change. I just think, last time he was a 3-horse race, he was 1-9, and he was basically a cinch. But I just think horses sometimes need a little bit of confidence, and he hadn't really been getting the job done in some of those grade 1s and those prestigious races, and sometimes that horses just kind of need that to kind of build their confidence. And I don't know about you, Pat. When I looked at the time form, they project him to be last, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, just because he's stretching out to 1.25 miles. But I assume he'll probably be right off the lead. Is that what you thought?
Yeah, I do, especially in a small horse field where obviously the horse has shown that that's not a problem. I look at this horse and, I remember, prior shows, during the Pegasus and all that. I know we didn't really have that episode. We weren't covering that card. Howard and Pete and Paul were.
Yep.
I mean, that horse was favored in
Yeah.
that race. And, obviously didn't really run that well. Kind of had a rough trip. I looked at today and this horse has really done nothing wrong since. So, that Churchill race was really tough. The Turf Classic, obviously. This horse is well meant. I think just, off form is a little bit better than Nation's Pride. But, you could deal with, what does Buick do with Nation's Pride? And that's where I kind of want to hear what you guys think of, where Nation's Pride is going to sit in this race and how you envision the race unfolding.
I mean, Charlie, I'll go to you on that first. As Timeform has it, they have Nation's Pride sitting kind of mid-pack, like fourth. I mean, that last race and the Manhattan, he was basically 3.5 off. He showed that he can sit a little more forwardly. Obviously, at Woodbine in the Canadian International, ran a hole in the wind, just sitting right off the lead. I kind of envision him right next to Integration, and if it's a matchup between Nation's Pride and Integration, I mean, as much as it was in the Integration fan club, I just feel like a horse like Nation's Pride, with how classy he is, I feel like he just kind of has the upper hand in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. I think to me, it is more of I think it is a 2-horse race between those two. Obviously, Talk of the Nation will be towards the lead. So will the number 3. I'm blanking on the name right now. But those will be the two I think we would expect to be towards the front. I do think Nation's Pride will be a little more forwardly placed in Integration. I don't mean, as far of a discrepancy as Timeform is showing, which I think Pat and Noah would agree, and so would you. I think we all agree they'd probably be relatively close to each other in terms of where they are. I just have a feeling that Buick, at least what I would do, is have him slightly ahead of Integration so he can get that first jump. And to be honest with you, I think what the kick Nation's Pride has shown in the past, I understand he hasn't quite gotten the job done, but it's not like he's been, losing any sort of bad horses or any sort of truly embarrassing efforts. I mean, obviously losing to Silver Knot, who we know how Noah feels about in measured time, who's a horse that I was all over last time out. So to me, that's 2 horses that I think would dominate this field. So yeah, I just think Nation's Pride is the horse to beat here. I think Buick will make sure they get the first jump. And look, I've really been always against Integration, but I do have to admit, I don't think the horse has stepped a foot wrong. I was all over Warm Heart in that race at Gulfstream. Really have consistently played against Integration. But I did watch that effort, and I know, it's hard to know what to make with Integration in a 1-9 effort, but I think Pat put it best. This is a horse that's taken serious money and really hasn't put a step wrong, so I still have to give credit. I think it's ultimately more of my belief in Nation's Pride than anything against Integration. And I really think, I know the value isn't there, but I think this will end up being a stone cold 4-1.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. It's just, and Chris Couples is kind of agreeing with me. He says, brings his A game. Integration Connection will be wondering once again what happened. Howard brings up, says, anyone seen William Buick ride in the USA lately? I heard he's pretty good. I think he is pretty good. He's giving me Nation's Pride over Integration. Soft turf might be the equalizer. Obviously, Nation's Pride has run well on the soft turf before. It's not, again, the biggest concern to me, although, I mean, Integration, that very impressive effort last time out, was on the soft turf. So, again, makes for an even better match race, in my opinion. Also, I just saw in the chat that Howard puts polls sometimes. So if you're on YouTube, take a look towards the chat periodically for polls. I can't believe the Pizza Man didn't win your favorite Arlington Million winner of all time. That's still my favorite call of all time from John Dooley, when the Pizza Man was the first and only Illinois bred to ever win the Arlington Million. Just an absolutely fantastic call and a fantastic race that day. And came back to, I think he ran 5th in the Breeders' Cup Turf, if I remember correctly. Someone can, obviously Howard or Chris Couples can educate me in the chat, but I believe he ran 5th that year, which was 2015 in the Breeders' Cup Turf. But yeah, I just think Nation's Pride makes a ton of sense. I think between the two of them, I think just Nation's Pride class gives him the upper hand. And if he's going to get the same trip as Integration, maybe even a more to the outside of Integration, I think that also gives a little bit of an up to Nation's Pride with William Buick aboard. Of course, not creative by any means, but I just think it's going to be a match race between those two. And for me, Nation's Pride Last horse I'll bring up, Patrick, Noah, and either one of you want to bring this horse up. Ancient Rome is a horse that's been running at Ascot and at Longchamp these last few times. First 2 times out of the year at Ascot, needed that first start most likely in the Wolferton. Came back at a mile in the summer mile, the Group 2, and ran second at 18-1 for Charlie Hills. Jamie Spencer now comes back over on this horse, won at Kentucky Downs, going a mile at Kentucky Downs. We all know that plays a little bit longer, and won very impressively that day at the Mint Million. Again, that was last year. This will be third time off the layoff. I mean, he makes sense. He's going to be a little bit more forwardly placed. I think he's going to be either on the lead or just off the lead of Talk of the Nation, who's obviously going to be stretching out to that 1.25 miles. Noah, Patrick, I'll go to Noah first. I mean, any thoughts on this horse maybe getting a jump on horses like Integration or Nation's Pride, or is he just a little bit of a step below?
The only thing I'll say about Ancient Rome is if you're a backer of this horse, I would think you would want Jamie Spencer to be as close to Segoy as possible, because Nation's Pride and Integration, that duo, they've got some wicked late kicks. So I think you have to try and get the best first jump as possible. Otherwise, I think he's probably going to get run down. And he might get bet too, depending on the weather. A lot of people just kind of like to default to, hey, it's soft, so this hero is going to prefer it. And that actually makes me like Integration more, because I think he might be the third choice. But
if he is, then that's insane.
Ancient Rome, if you like him, close as possible.
Patrick, do you agree with that completely?
Yeah, I do. And you hit on the horse being like 18-1 last time out. I'm not saying this is a negative, but I like to see when Euros come over. Usually I like to see them bet a little bit more. You kind of know more about him. Has obviously been here, is bred here, but just kind of that nature of, being a longer shot on the board overseas and then coming over here, really what that's all about.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Ancient Rome's the wild card for me. Charlie has Talk of the Nation, but I just think I've never really thought this horse was a longer horse than a mile. Obviously ran really well at Kentucky Downs, so that might be a plus for this horse. Charlie, we'll move on to best bets, but I just wanted to touch on this. That you have this horse in third. I mean, it makes a ton of sense, but yeah, for me, I just don't know if he's going to be able to get the 1.25 miles, and if he does, he definitely has a chance to hang on for a piece just based on pace scenario wise, but he's going to have to show it to me because he's been fading in cold paces at a mile. Just not too sure if he wants the 1.25 miles. In the million, the Arlington Million, I'm going 4-1-2. Patrick's going 1-4-2. Charlie's going 4-1-6, and Noah's also going 1-4-2. Guys, before we move on to best bets, one more chance. Please go down below, hit the like button here on YouTube. If you're on X, which I know a lot of you watch from X, there's almost 200 people watching live from X right now. Please come over to YouTube if you can come over right now or after the viewing concludes. And please hit the like button to show us that you guys are enjoying the content. We'd really appreciate it. Love to get 75 likes on what used to be my favorite card the entire year. But guys, we'll move on to best bets. Patrick, I have you going first. Pick 3 in race number 7. 1-7 with 4-8 with 1-3-9. That's 7, 8, and 9. And race number 10, a win on the number 5, Mission of Joy, as you talked about. You have a strong opinion, hopefully at a price.
Yeah, so for the pick 3, starts with the female turf sprint. I'm going to use the 2 logicals in there, Love Appeals and the 7, who I believe is Beauty of the Sea. Try and get out of there because, like Kyle said, I have a couple more prices, in the second half and, closing of that ticket with the 4 Determined Kingdom, as well as the 8 Mischief Magic, who obviously will probably be heavy favored in that race. And then in the 8th race, listen, I really like the 1. I'm going to play. I'll single that horse. In pick 3s, but I'll play around with the 3 and the 9 as well as a little bit of longer shots in there. And then my win bet on Mission of Joy in the Beverly D. I might get a little cute with that, but and also if Integration's the third choice, like Noah says, that could be a best bet too.
Yeah, I mean, and Jim says Patrick's best bet should be the late pick 4. Unfortunately, in those 4 strings of races,
it's true.
Not including the Arlington Million, it does not have a pick 4 starting in race number 7. That would be races 8 through 11. But Jim, of course, your point is completely valid. But Charlie, we'll go to you next, my friend. You gave me 3 because apparently you wanted to be edgy and, cooler than everyone else. Race number 7, we're singling 7 over 1.5. Race number 9, a win on the number 7 is what you sent me. I didn't even have to look at who that was. And race number 11, an exacto 4-1. Charlie, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, full transparency, did this for 2 reasons. One, because I get, I think Noah's point that he made is valid about how the 1 could go off as the third choice. I just thought they likely wouldn't. It'd be the 2 heavy favorites, so I thought that might be a little too chalky. Also, just because when I originally had my first 2 best bets, I realized First World War wasn't included, and that's simply unacceptable for the Charlie Freeman fan club. Your horses always have to be in the best bets if they're running. So, we talked about Beauty of the Sea, the 7 who looks incredibly tough. I know we talked about Love Appeals being talented and the 5 being the one who's, a bit of a wild card, where the 5 is run. I can't think of the name right now, but is run against the most difficult fields of every horse in that race, but has kind of had trouble getting that distance. It's been a little too short in the past. So I'm just playing the favorite over the 2 most likely horses underneath. First World War, I mean, I don't know what really needs to be said. Just, an incredibly talented horse who always runs his race. I hear the complaints that we get from the people on the show about how he gets great trips. But again, talented horses get themselves in great spots. Got to be a great horse to get a great trip. And I just see him doing it again. I think he'll sit right off. And then I have a feeling Tricari, who I like, will do a lot of the hard work and will end up finishing second. And I'll hear a bunch of blabbering from you guys say, but he didn't do that. It doesn't matter how you win. It just matters if you win, and he will win yet again. And then I won't really go into the last one because we just talked about that race. But again, I think it's the 2-horse race. I think the 4 will win. And like I said, I expect the Stone Cold exact to 4-1, and that's what'll happen.
Yeah, again, completely get it. But you didn't even mention the winner and when you were talking about First World War, but I completely understand why you like that horse. We should get a good trip again. Good luck with your best bets. Noah, going to you. Race 8, number 5, Eamon, who you mentioned a little bit. I just wanted to save it for the best bets because I know you have a very strong opinion. And race number 10, a double 6-1 straight Moira into integration.
I'm going to ignore Jim's comment.
Please pull it up.
Yeah, I do like Eamon underneath just because turf sprints over the last month or so during the summer have been pretty brutal, and every time I try and go with a shortish price, it doesn't end up working out. Either they don't run well or they don't break, which is normally the case. But I'll try to get either a 7-5 or exact or a 7 all 5 trifecta. Try to get that fraudulent Appleby out of there. And then fast forward to race 10. I just think Moore was the horse to beat. That effort off of that long layoff just kind of opened my eyes. And I think she's very likely in that spot. And if she does end up going to Woodbine, I'd probably just change my win bet to a win bet, or change my best bet to a win bet on integration. Because I think he honestly might be third choice. Just because people might bet Ancient Rome just because of the whole soft turf, whatever. But that being said, hopefully the weather cooperates with us at Colonial and Saratoga. But I know a place that doesn't have to worry about weather. That place is Del Mar, baby.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, that one lined up.
Absolutely. Either way, no, good luck with your best bets. Again, makes a ton of sense. I'm going win on numbers in the 6th race. I didn't want to go turf races, turf sprints, as this has already been touched on this show too much. Not my favorite. No, thank you. I will take race number 6, win on number 2, Dazzling Move. 3 of us had on top. The pace scenario shapes up completely. I just think number 2, Dazzling Move makes a ton of sense at 7-2. And race number 10, Moira into Nation's Pride. Nothing great, nothing out of the box, but 3.5-1 on a horse that's going to be probably 6-5 and 6-5 makes a ton of sense. Going to try and get that one big, and I will be damned if I lose if integration finally wins a race where I need him to. I'm going to throw an Insanity Insurance 6-1 on that race as well. But don't go anywhere, guys. We have a special guest to bring on real quick who's got something very, very cool going on tomorrow afternoon and evening. For those that don't know, Hawthorne, a great supporter of the podcast, usually comes on afterwards to talk about the Thursday sequence. But if you're going to want to hear about the Thursday sequence, you're going to have to hear a man who is on this podcast a lot and is going to be live on the simulcast feed tomorrow afternoon. I'll bring him on right now to talk for a quick 2 minutes. Then we'll end the show. the boss man himself, Howard Kravitz. Howard, what's going on, my friend?
What's up, guys? Great job as always. I wish people at home could see what's going on behind the scenes with the private chat. A few quick things. First of all, I have a challenge to Noah in front of the entire world. Noah, if you take your hat off and show your haircut, I will wear the Panama hat on the simulcast tomorrow.
Wow.
That could be worth it. That could be worth
You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it. I'll question their friendship if you don't.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to. I don't even know if they let. I don't know if they really want me to wear that. But anyway, you guys, a few quick things. First of all, early happy birthday to the host of the show, Kyle Roscoe, the big 2-5 this Saturday. August birthdays, of course, Noah or Kyle are clearly the best.
Obviously.
Yours truly is coming up also in August here in about 2 weeks. I will not be 25. You can reverse that and add one. Number 2, enjoy the bachelor party, Kyle, in Vegas. Please make sure you come back in one piece. Noah will be ready to host the show next week because who knows what's going to happen to Kyle. Number 3, before I talk about Hawthorne, I like to consider myself, fairly intelligent guy, sometimes humorous. And if you agree with those two things, then you know the names of the horses for my best plays at Colonial Sunday. Who would they be? Someone intelligent and try to be funny. You mentioned both of you guys mentioned both these horses.
Oh, I've got one.
Which one, Noah?
Witty.
There we go. That's one of them. What's the other one? In the Secretariat, my play of the day.
Oh boy.
Brilliant Birdie.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. See, we got 4 winners on the screen.
He's really good. So anyway, I just gave away some power pick plays there, but that's okay. Hawthorne, real quick, guys. First of all, shout out to Jim Miller, John Walsh, the Carey family, Emily Gullickson, everyone at Hawthorne is giving me the opportunity to be on the simulcast feed tomorrow as their co-host analyst. I did that last year. I'm doing it again this year. Who knows, guys? Maybe more permanent gig at some point in my life, but excited to be on Hawthorne. Post is 3:10 Eastern. I believe the pregame, like simulcast feed where we talk about all the races for a bit, I think is around 2:30 Eastern. And I have one little be aware, popcorn vendors at Hawthorne Racecourse, be aware, because there will be a Matt Miller sighting at Hawthorne, and the popcorn will be a-flowing. But anyway, great job as always, guys. I'll let you wrap up the show, but check out Hawthorne tomorrow. Really good card. By the way, Kyle, Bobblehead is making his first appearance at Hawthorne tomorrow.
Oh,
James Graham's got 4 mounts. Walter Rodriguez is also there, guys. And it's a really nice card. And as usual, I'm going to try to beat some favorites and others I like. But the weather's here beautiful. And they'll be on the turf tomorrow and looking forward to it. So everyone check out the Hawthorne simulcast feed tomorrow, 3:10 Eastern, first post.
Absolutely.
Guys,
and how lucky you are to finally get the weather cooperating, because it hasn't been necessarily the last couple of weeks. They know Howard's in town though, so they got to make the weather correct.
Yeah, the weather's gonna be great, and it's gonna be on the turf, and the weather this in the Northeast this weekend. But I do want to say one thing, guys.
Go for it.
I want to. I think this should be mentioned because Nairo got some crap last week for last Saturday. Paul and I talked about it extensively on why they took it off the turf. Guys, we want them to be proactive, right? We don't want last-second decisions. And Colonials moved to Sunday. The 2 big races that were scheduled for Saturday at Saratoga will be run Sunday if they're off the turf. So, guys, at least they're looking ahead, right? They're being proactive. We can't control the weather. You can only, control what you can. So I think it should be mentioned to give these tracks credit for doing the right thing, being safe, and backing these races up on days where they can run. So I just want to mention that also.
No, that's a completely fair point. I completely agree with you, Howard. I mentioned on Twitter as well. The proactiveness of Colonial has been this entire week. They even moved Thursday and Friday to Monday and Tuesday. So it's been the whole chat wants the hat. We want the hat either way. But yeah, I mean, it's always better to be safe than sorry in a lot of ways. So being proactive, letting the bettors know early that it's going to be moved doesn't change us. The money will still come flowing. Doesn't matter what day we end up betting it, especially for a card with races like Secretariat, the Beverly D, and the Arlington Million. Howard, I'll do the outro with you on the screen. But either way, everyone, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Howard wants one more thing. What's up?
You guys have show 100.
True.
In the not too distant future. Kyle, you and I have to talk about it, but I'm really proud of you guys, to be very honest. It's amazing. What is this, show 94, I believe?
Yep.
You guys just keep getting better and better with the analysis. So just, tip my cap to you guys for a great job, and the show just continues to grow. And I'm excited for show 100 and next month probably will be.
Yeah, it'll be it's 6 weeks. So it's and yeah, it's nuts, because we started this as as a quote unquote experiment to see what we could do. Howard approached me about it after I made a couple, including Arlington Million Day of 2021, a couple appearances, and it's gone, like I said, it's all thanks to you guys, but it's gone really well. So we'll have something special planned for 100. Like I said, Howard and I will be talking about in the coming weeks, but we'll be sure to let you guys know what's going to happen. It'll be a ton of fun. But thank you guys all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Covering Arlington Million Day for my co-hosts, Patrick Kunsel, Noah Maher, Charlie Freeman, the boss, the founder of HHH Racing Podcast, Howard Kravitz, and myself. This has been episode 94 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering Arlington Million Day at Colonial Downs now this Sunday, August 11th. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.